Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is turn. And you may be surprised to know this, but we are actually going to break this verb down into 4 parts because there are so many different ways to use the verb turn. With that in mind, let's begin today's discussion by reviewing some of the most basic ways that we can use this verb. And I want to disclaim this is not all the ways. In the subsequent videos, we will do many more explanations. But to start with, one way you might encounter the verb turn being used can mean to move in a circular direction, either wholly or partly around an axis or a point. And I'm lucky to have a chair that will do this right now, but I'm going to turn my body this way and turn this way, right? So there's my access point. With this first definition, you might also think of a wheel and that circular motion it's making around its axis. Now, a second way to use the verb turn could mean to twist or sprain an ankle. And it's just that part of one's body. So we don't use it with wrists or knees or other similar joints, only one's ankle. A third way you might encounter the verb turn could mean to move something so that it is in a different position. So some people might think of this as they're lying down. Perhaps getting ready to go to sleep. They're on one side and then they move to the other. That could be one example of moving something in a different position. I know when I'm baking things, many times the recipe will tell me to turn the pan after 20 minutes in the oven or something similar of that nature. Now, a fourth way you might encounter the verb turn could mean to change, to have something or to change something's nature, state, form, or color. Just a little while ago, I was visiting with someone who noted another person was turning red or that their cheeks were turning red. So that's a great example of this verb being used. They were noting that as a way to suggest that someone was being embarrassed by what was being discussed. A fifth way you might encounter the verb turn could mean to pass the age or the time of. So you might hear somebody is turning 40, right? That means they're reaching that particular age. For now, you should know that turn is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms turning. The past tense and the participle form of this verb can be made by just adding ed. Our base verb, turn, ends in a voiced in sound. This means the ed ending is just going to make a d sound, and I'm not going to add an extra syllable to the verb when I pronounce it. The past tense and the participle form of the verb should sound like this: turned, turned. Okay? Now let's begin our discussion of phrasal verbs. There are so many phrasal verbs with turn. This is one of the reasons we're breaking this verb into 4 videos. Our first phrasal verb that we'll discuss is to turn against. The meaning here is to defy, revolt against, or become antagonistic toward someone or something. An example of this might be: the agency was created to help immigrants, but now it has turned against them. This particular sentence has been used in a recent newspaper story about the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, or USCIS, and is now talking about how I think the third part here, it's becoming antagonistic toward immigrants instead of helping immigrants. Now, another phrasal verb you might encounter is to turn around. This has so many different meanings. We're going to discuss 7 of them. The first way you'll hear turn around used could mean to rotate in a circle. This could be a person or an object. An example of this might be, the child was turned around 3 times and then told to pin the tail on the donkey. So this is kind of a silly birthday game that is sometimes played, so somebody will be blindfolded so they're not able to see. And then again, this idea of making the person rotate around, in this case 3 times, before they try and stick the tail on this particular animal. That's an example of passive voice. I don't know that I mentioned in the first example we had an present perfect being used there. Now, the second way you might encounter turn around could mean to rotate something or someone until it is oriented in the opposite direction. So you might hear this used as a command or in the imperative. Turn around and face me when you're speaking. So what this suggests is someone has their back to another person, right? And they're asking to rotate until you are now facing. A third way to use turn around could mean to reverse the direction of something. Here's an example of that. I'm going to turn this car around if you don't stop fighting. I think many parents have said something very similar to this. So what they mean, maybe they're driving somewhere, but children are fighting in the back seat of the car or automobile, and this idea of like, I'm going to reverse and head home unless you start behaving better. Now, a fourth way to use turnaround could mean to improve in some way. An example of this might be, this team has really turned around. So maybe they started the season by losing many games, and now they're starting to win. So they are improving. That's an example also of the present perfect. A fifth way to use turnaround could mean to do something unexpected. An example of this could be, they turned around and fired him. So what this suggests is it was very out of the blue, without warning, like there wasn't any indication that this was the plan, or it could be the consequence of something. That is what's important, I think, about that particular usage of turnaround. That last example would be in the simple past tense. Now, our sixth way to use turnaround could mean to complete expected or necessary work on something. An example of this in a sentence might be, how quickly can you turn around these changes? So maybe there are some edits to a project or something that's being worked on. And here we're asking about someone's ability to make these changes and how quickly they can be done. So that's the modal can to discuss the ability there, or even the possibility of that happening. A seventh way to use turnaround could mean to make someone confused, disoriented, or lost. An example of this might be, this trail turns me around every time. So here someone is suggesting, I'm confused. I don't know which way to go. I'm a bit lost. That's an example of the simple present. So someone is discussing what sounds like a fact here, that they get confused whenever they're maybe walking or running along this particular trail. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is to turn away. It can also have a number of different meanings or usages. One way to use it is to talk about turning one's body, head, or eyes in a different direction. An example of this might be, I always turn away when I have blood drawn. That is also in the simple present. And this is very true for me. I don't cry. I don't find it painful to have blood samples taken, but I do not enjoy watching it. So I will move my head in this opposite direction as it is occurring. A second way to use turn away might mean to dismiss, reject, spurn, or refuse someone or something. An example of this might be, we turned away 10 students after our classes filled up. There's an example of simple past tense, and essentially what it's saying is we did not allow those students to enroll in the class. We had to reject or refuse them for this particular class. A third way to use turn away could mean to repel, repulse, or ward off someone or something. An example of this might be, the long lines will turn people away. That's another simple future sentence. Here, someone might be making a prediction, but they're afraid it's going to make people not want to attend or wait for. Maybe it's a product or a table at a restaurant. Who knows? But it's that idea of it's going to keep people away. The last phrasal verb we're going to discuss in today's video is to turn back. This can be used to mean to stop moving forward and begin returning to one's origin point or where you started. An example of this, should we turn back? It's getting dark. Here's an example of someone asking for advice using that modal should and wanting to know, should we stop maybe heading this direct way and head back? Okay. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb turn. And the first word we're going to start with is our noun form. And this noun turn can have so many different meanings. We're just going to discuss a few of them today. The first way to use the noun turn is to refer to an act of moving something in a circular direction around an axis or a point. An example of this would be, give the wheel a turn, right? So that idea of moving it around its axis. Now, a second way to use turn could refer to a bend or a curve in some type of road, a path, a river, something else. So an example of this in a sentence could be careful. This road is full of twists and turns. A third way to use the noun turn can refer to some kind of development or change in circumstances or in a course of events. Oh, shoot, I went to fourth there. We'll go ahead and do that one. So that definition would match up with, unfortunately, the patient has taken a turn for the worse. So this would be that development. Maybe the patient is not responding to certain treatment. Somehow their condition is worsening. Another way to use the noun turn is to refer to a change of direction when moving. An example of this would be, make a left turn at the next light. A fifth way to use the noun turn would refer to a time when one specified period of time ends and another begins. An example of this, since the turn of the century, patients have been interacting with medical professionals via web portals. So this is referring to that time period of going from 1999 to 2000, okay? Our turn of the century. Another way to use the noun turn is to refer to an opportunity or obligation to do something that comes successively to some group of people. Maybe it's just two, maybe it's a much larger group. You might hear this used with various games. So an example of that might be, whose turn is it to draw a card? Right? So maybe there's a game that involves one person taking a card, doing something, and then another person taking a card, and so on and so forth. We're calling each of those things a turn. Now, a final way you might encounter the noun turn could be to refer to a short walk or ride. So someone might suggest to you, hey, take a turn on this new bike, right? So they're asking you to ride it, kind of test it out, try it out, see what you think. Another related word you might encounter is the noun a turnabout. This is generally used to describe a sudden and complete change or reversal of a policy, an opinion, or of some kind of situation. An example of this in a sentence might be, the administration has made a big turnabout in its fiscal policies. So maybe they had been insistent on one thing and now they've changed, and it's almost like the complete opposite. Another related word you might encounter is the noun turnaround. This can have a couple different meanings. One way to use it is to refer to an abrupt or unexpected change, especially one that results in a more favorable situation, so something improved or better. An example of this might be, the company's sales turnaround in Q3 or the third quarter shocked analysts. So here, people were not predicting a large increase in this particular company's sales, but it seems to have happened. Another way to use the noun turnaround is to talk about the process of completing or the time needed in order to complete a task. An example of this in a sentence might be, our marketing department usually has a 5-day turnaround on smaller projects. So that's about how long we could expect for them to take our request and produce maybe a document or a social media post or video or what have you. That is what that last sentence is describing. Thanks so much for watching part 1 of Turn. I hope you will tune in again and learn even more phrasal verbs with Turn. Have a great day.